Hey everyone, Mike Miller with the Herald Times, coming to you with Scoop Talk after Indiana's 34-13 win over Florida International down here in hot and humid Miami, Florida. Came into this game with a lot of questions. A whole list of questions had formed since we last saw Indiana play a football game in December. New quarterback, new defense, a host of young guys, some of the guys that just relatively inexperienced who are going to be playing in bigger roles this year in certain spots. Had a lot of questions about all those things, and Indiana actually came out and gave us some pretty solid answers after that one. We'll start with the quarterback because that has been topic number one of just about every Indiana football-centered conversation over the last few months. Richard Lagow obviously was the starter. We've known that for at least the last week or so. Pretty solid indeed. Definitely got off to a little bit of a slow start, but he settled in the second half and certainly in that fourth quarter. For the night, he finished 18 for 27, 240 yards, and he threw a touchdown, a 21-yard touchdown to tight end Danny Friend that gave Indiana a lead in early in the fourth quarter. He actually followed that up with a 6-yard run that really created separation and put Indiana in position to drive away with this one. I think, honestly, the degree of difficulty on some of the throws early made it maybe a little tough for him to really settle in. I mean, we saw, I think it might have been actually maybe his first throw of the night. I don't have the list in front of me, but one of those first throws was a deep ball 30, 40 yards downfield, I think, to Nick Westbrook. It was just overthrown, no chance of him catching it. Not long after that, there was a fade route down the sideline, and that obviously, too, was not caught. So a little bit stop and start for Lagow. But like I said, I think he really settled in there in the second half toward the end of the third quarter because in the fourth quarter, he was just rolling. He threw only 5 passes, I think, in that fourth quarter, completed 4 of them, including that touchdown. And at that point, it just seemed a little bit more comfortable. Just seemed a little bit more. He was finding the soft spots a little bit better, I guess. He wasn't really taking the shots, just kind of easing along down the field, letting the guys do work for him. Obviously, Indiana's running game was pretty strong tonight. Divine Redding had a really solid night. What are the numbers there? We got 22 carries for 135 yards. I think we saw 5 running backs rotate onto the field, 4 not including Divine. Totals there, 246 yards, 1 touchdown. That 1 touchdown belonged to Richard Lagow. But 52 carries. So, yeah, we saw a lot of the running game as expected for Indiana tonight, and that looks solid as expected. Didn't see some of the new power game. Clyde Newton was out there, didn't get a handoff. He was more of a fullback in certain sets tonight. We saw Mike Magette, who looked pretty solid. Magette, I think it was on a screen pass, maybe third or fourth quarter, that really helped Indiana get downfield. It must have been fourth quarter, caught a screen pass and got downfield on one of those scoring drives for Richard Lagow. So he was, as expected, a guy who was actually a receiver starting out at Indiana last year. Obviously can do a few different things. So got to see some of the versatility of that Indiana running back unit. Divine Redding, obviously the most balanced, but got to see Cole Guest, Devontae Williams, and Mike Magette. Alex Rodriguez, I think, snuck in there for a handoff or 2. So, yeah, I mean, it just seemed as they're breaking in a new quarterback, as they're trying to ease Richard Lagow into this system, we figured we'd probably see a good amount of running from Indiana tonight. We certainly did. And that was kind of, at certain points, that was kind of what was leading Indiana along. I mean, for 3 quarters, it was just it was a pretty stagnant offense, quite frankly. But openers are funky. Openers are really funky. It's tough to really read a whole lot from any opener. You obviously take the good with the bad, but they're just tough to read, tough to predict. Just squirrely things. These football season openers, as we saw last year, as you see most years. I mean, just look around. But with some of that good, with some of the bad, there was certainly a lot of good, especially on defense. Really, really impressive start to the season for this new 4-2-5 defense for Indiana under new defensive coordinator Tom Allen. Just saw him making plays. Marcelino Ball, 17-year-old freshman, which is still blows my mind. Kid's 17 years old, doesn't look 17. And certainly tonight didn't play like he was 17. He was all over the field. He actually botched the coverage at one point, but then came back and was just right in the thick of things, just smacking guys around. 3 interceptions, 2 of which were returned for touchdowns. That Indiana hasn't returned 2 Indiana hasn't returned 2 interceptions for touchdowns since 1966. Yeah. So definitely pointing in the right direction here with that new look defense. Really, and it was there from the beginning. First, FIU goes up 3-0 with a field goal in their first possession. IU comes back, doesn't do much, and then you get new punter Joseph Gedeon, who is they're gonna pull out the fake punt for Joseph Gedeon at some point. He runs like a 4. I'm not sure. Someone said at one point 4.5. He's fast. He's a really fast dude. And he's got a pretty good leg. I think Wilson's kind of lamented the inconsistencies, but he's a new guy just trying to get into this role. We'll see. And we certainly saw a really impressive first punt of the night from him. Coffin corner pinned FIU at the 1-yard line. 2 plays later, Indiana's on the board with a safety. FIU called for holding in the end zone. So all told, I think the defense accounted for 16 points. They outscored FIU. At one point, they were outscoring Indiana's offense. So it was. When we talk with Tom Allen, it's always about the approach. When we talk with guys this year, when we ask them what's different, it's just the approach. It's the mentality of going after these takeaways. Just the belief that you have to play decent defense. And at times they were burned, and at times that they really got bailed out because throws just weren't on the money or they weren't caught, or it just there were some chances there for FIU to exploit. They didn't exploit them, and by and large, it was just a very, very solid, cohesive start to finish defensive effort for Indiana. After the safety, Richard Fant intercepted. FIU quarterback Alex Magoo took it, I think, 34 yards to the end zone, and then later to just totally ice this one, totally close it out. Tigray Scales intercepted a pass, took it 16 yards to the end zone. Gosh, I'm forgetting someone. Someone else had an interception. I should probably mention it. 3 interceptions. Benbach. Is that right? Yes, it is. Sorry. Yeah, 3 interceptions, which this is kind of what we saw last year, early in the non-conference schedule. Indiana was getting the takeaways. Weren't calling them takeaways at that point, but they were getting takeaways in those early games. I mean, you go back, Richard Fant's interception that he returned for a touchdown was the first time Indiana had done that since Tony Fields at Wake Forest last September. So that was kind of what was really the difference with Indiana early last season when you consider, Tony Fields, Jonathan Crawford starting as hot as he did last year. That was a big reason why Indiana was so successful through those first 4 non-conference games. Really, under Kevin Wilson, they've been pretty good at not turning the ball over. The one thing that they weren't doing for those first 4 years or so was actually generating the takeaways on the other end of the field. But that obviously I pointed to that last year just because 3 interceptions tonight, 2 return for touchdowns. It's that is Tom Allen. That is what he preaches. That is what he wants. Those takeaways, and Indiana certainly delivered in that department tonight. Talk about suspensions real quick. Indiana suspended 6 players before the game, including 3 starters. The starters were safety Chase Dutra, defensive tackle Ralph Green, and leading receiver Sidney Cobbs. Those were all 1-game suspensions, and I believe the only indefinite suspension of those 6, also a defensive back, Jake Atari's a walk-on, didn't play last year, and cornerback Noel Padmore were the other 2. That's 5. The 6 was Wesley Green, cornerback, transferred from South Carolina. First, he's finally eligible this year. He's out indefinitely. No time frame for his return. He was supposed to factor into this. Still is supposed to factor into this cornerback group this year. Shouldn't say never. We've heard a lot of just when we talk to Wills, when we talk to Brandon Shelby, his position coach there, it's just a lot of inconsistency from Wesley Green. So we'll see when he gets back in the mix. Suspensions, the reasons for them, it goes back all the way to the end of the last season. So if a guy screws up back in January, then he's paying the price here in September. It could be for violations of team rules, getting in trouble with the law, just not going to class. So there's a lot of there are a few reasons there that Wilson has to hold some of these guys out. The other bit of news that we should probably touch on real quick is tight end Jordan Fuchs dislocated his ankle early in Thursday's game. It's a pretty significant injury. He's going to miss potentially the entire year. Wilson said there's a potential for him to return, but at that point you wonder, well, he's got a redshirt year. Maybe you keep him out. Well, you see how it goes, and you still have that redshirt cushion. So there's no reason, no real reason to rush him back if he's not ready. So we'll kind of monitor that and see how it goes. We'll obviously have more from Kevin Wilson on Monday. This is going long. I didn't mean for this to take so long. But yeah, we will check back in on Monday. So actually, check back in tomorrow, 5 for Friday. So cool. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.